Welcome back, degenerates. This is Locked In, and I'm your host, Mason Cameron at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishal at Vishal_Gupta 95 on Twitter. There we go. I finally got it out there. Um, V, we're on to week 3. The betting markets are looking good. We've got a lot of good games on tap. How you doing? How you living?
Doing good. Should be a very fun, full weekend of games. We have a full slate, no buys yet, so really looking forward to it.
It's another good one. There's some good games on the slate here too. Some hot matchups, some high-powered matchups. We got a pretty good one for Monday night. It's going to be a good
Yep.
time. Can't wait to break them down. And just before we get started, if you guys aren't already subscribed to us here, make sure you guys go hit the subscribe button. Also go follow us on Twitch as well. If you want to support us, if you want all of our data, get access to our Discord, head over to importantnonsense.com and become a member over there. That's how you get into our Discord. That's how you can ask us all of your betting questions. That's how you can ask all the guys their fantasy football questions, get your trade advice, get your start sits, all that good stuff. So make sure you guys go hit us up there. In V, we start off with a Thursday night game that was actually a little more interesting than I anticipated. I won't lie, I didn't see this happening with with the Dolphins. So the Dolphins head into Buffalo to take on the Bills. They go 21 to the Bills 31. Miami covers as 12.5 point road dogs. This one got really weird. There were a lot of really weird lines for this one heading up into kickoff, and as well through the live line, it was a little bit goofy there at points, getting all the way down to about 7.5 at halftime. The game total on this one, it was about 49.5 at close. It went over, much to my own chagrin, as I was on the under in this one. Like I said, not expecting the Dolphins to be able to do too much. And they go over in the final moments. 52 points due in part to a absolutely brutal pick by Tua. But Miami started out strong. They came out, they put up 14 right off the rip, go into halftime tied, and then just sort of sputtered out down the stretch. Like I said, that brutal pick from Tua late in the fourth quarter. Also, I'm not sure who I need to tell this, but did anybody tell Elijah Moore that those are Khalil Shakur's targets? And especially when I'm betting the Khalil Shakur over on receptions, like what gives,
Yep.
man? What gives? But the Dolphins, one of the big things that surprised me is how good they were on late downs. They went 10 for 15 on third down. They hit that fourth down conversion. They had the penalty on the roughing the punter to give them a new
Yeah.
chance late in the game. What did you see in this one? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not overly surprised the Dolphins were able to cover. It was just a huge number. 12.5 is a ginormous number. I mean, I know the Dolphins have been very much underachieving so far this season, but they are still relatively healthy where it counts on offense. So that it's not shocking that they were able to stay in this one. It was a little surprising that they had a chance to win this game until that roughing the punter call that you just brought up. I mean, if they hadn't gotten that one, they would have had the ball back and had a chance to kind of win this game potentially. So that part was a little bit shocking. Yeah, I don't know if there's too much to take away on the Miami side. I feel like we could see some of this throughout the season where they're going to be competent in stretches, but overall, this is a team that we know is not really going anywhere. They're not going to accomplish much this season. I feel like a lot of those guys are not going to be on this team, whether it's players or coaches, when we start the 26th season. So, yeah, these guys are just playing for jobs right now. So not a lot to take away from them. For Buffalo, you continue to love what you see from Josh Allen. Super impressed with what we've seen from James Cook this season. I've been pleasantly surprised at how impactful he has been. He's somebody I was kind of staying away in fantasy draft because I thought he's going to be one of those guys who we've seen for the last couple of years where all his goal line touches get vultured by Josh Allen. So it's like, do I really want to spend a high draft pick on somebody like James Cook? And so far, they've been giving him the rock every time they get down to the goal line. So he's been, a top running back for fantasy football, and he's been playing extremely well, picking up chunk yards left and right. The pass situation is a little tough, like you mentioned with the wide receivers. You never know who's going to be the hot target for a given day. They have a lot of options. Nobody's considered elite, but they're all good enough when you have somebody like Josh Allen throwing the ball, and he was terrific again yesterday. No mistakes, making big plays when he needed to, and getting a little crazy on times. He had some underthrow passes that he tried to make. He won for a touchdown. One almost had a long completion, but it kind of went incomplete at the last second. But he's doing crazy stuff, but he can make it work now because he knows exactly what he's doing. So, yeah, Bills are on a roll. They're going to continue to be on a roll. This is a 14, 15 win team, possibly, if they can stay healthy for the rest of the regular season. So, excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, it's nice sometimes when you're that top dog over in the AFC East. Feels like you get to beat up on some teams throughout the year, even with not a great defense. Now, it's one of these things where they were one of the worst defenses in the NFL last season. They came in, didn't start off great against Baltimore, and then they showed up against the Jets, and then now they're sort of back down to earth with this showing against Miami. Now, Miami is this sort of high powered offense on paper. They've really, you know, had some struggles. I like to just say the vibes are off there. But, they overall played really well. And something else that we look at, or something else that I looked at prior to kickoff here is, the story that you heard all over ESPN, all over the broadcast was how dominant this Bills team has been against Miami. I think it was 13-2 straight up. But when you looked at them in betting markets, this team was only 8-7 against the spread against Miami in the Josh Allen era. That includes a 4-4 record at home, and that includes a 2-4 record when favored by more than 6 points. And this game fell right into that trend here, where
Yeah.
now they're 2-5 when favored by more than 6 points, and 8-8 all time against the spread in the Josh Allen era versus the Dolphins. So, I mean, that's something worth watching, and that's why these things like these trends are really important. You mentioned some of the up and down sort of accuracy there with Josh at some points. Keon Coleman, he'd been pretty good for the first week, came back down to earth in week 2 a little bit, and then had a brutal drop there on a back shoulder. And those are the plays that they're going to have to live with. And the interesting thing is that they still can overcome. They put up 31 points now against the
Yeah.
Dolphins defense that has struggled mightily to start the year. But overall, a really strong showing. And this team right now is up there. I mean, like when we talk about them in Baltimore, and it it's really a coin flip for who's the best team in the AFC right now between them. And I mean, when it comes down to it, the Bills have just won those games in those matchups. Like they won week 1 and they made it happen, even though, they had nothing for a little while. And then, strip that ball from Derrick Henry and it's a new game. And they, beat them in the playoffs. And so it's one of these things that it's like, well, Buffalo has flaws, but they're winning when it counts. And that's going to be something that's worth watching as we move forward. Now, it's definitely going to be something worth watching as we get further and further into the season on these betting markets, because they're going to be a popular team that the public bets. So we're going to see a lot of lines almost every week, particularly when they're at home, where there's going to be 7.5, 10.5, twelve
Yeah.
and a
They're gonna be
half.
big, big numbers.
Big numbers. They're going to be favored on the road against some good teams this year. So even though this is a really, really solid team, they might be an opportunity to go against, to fade in some situations, especially like when they're on the road against some big teams. Or like I said, part of it is just that defense. Like this defense, something's got to give. They got to sort of figure it out. They were not good on late downs, and that's going to be an issue against some other teams that
Yeah.
can execute better offensively. So, going to be something that's worth watching. But interesting Thursday night game. Did not think it was going to be that interesting, to say the least. I thought it was going to be about a 31-10 matchup, and we are going to go under this 49.5. But of course, much to my chagrin, they get right in field goal range at the end to hammer it. So, anyway, we head on to our picks for the week. And so, for anybody who does not know how this show works, we don't break down every game. We don't have time to break down every game. We don't have skin in every game. But if you have betting questions, head over to our Discord. Like I said, go to importantnonsense.com, become a member. You can get it in on the lowest tier for your first month free. and ask us any of your betting questions, ask the guys your fantasy football questions, and get yourself set up. So the first game we have on the slate here, V, is one that I'm targeting as like a huge, huge value. It started off at about a 7 point game, and now it's gone under that magic number. We're getting it at 6.5, and I jumped on it. I love it at 6.5. We've got the New York Jets heading into Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. And the Bucks are 6.5 point favorites here in their home opener. They've been on the road twice to start the season. And game total on this one, 43.5 points. Low number. But what I really don't quite understand here is how this number could go down from 7 when I thought that it was actually going to move higher to the 7.5 line, because as the news goes, no Justin Fields for the Jets. Tyrod Taylor is going to start, and this is undoubtedly the one of the worst matchups you could get for a running team. Stylistically, this is not the team you want to run on. Todd Bowles, he's gotten this defense playing well. Todd Bowles always likes to be the guy who's dedicating bodies to the run, and he's going to funnel all the passing game into the middle of the field, rally up, and try to make tackles. He's going to try to make you beat him there. This defense is third in run defense grade from our friends over at PFF. 76.8 grade on that. They're fifth in rushing yards allowed to backs, and they're only allowing 3.5 yards per carry. That's a pretty good number there. Like I said, this is their first home game, but they're still 2-0 against the spread. They won straight up on the road in Houston, and that was an amazing game. What balls to the walls is Baker. He just goes nuts. And I was looking at the against the spread numbers when they won that game, and Baker as the road dog, or Tampa as the road dog, since Baker Mayfield took over the job in 2023, they're like 11-3 against the spread as road dogs. Pretty incredible. So that's going to be something worth watching there. Baker himself is a dog. That's a bad man right there. He goes out, that scramble for that first down late in that game was incredible. I was clinched. Did not think that they were going to be able to get there. And now you have them against the Jets defense that, listen, I know that they went the defensive side of the ball. I know that they've got, great coaching there, but this is just not coming together right now. They're not playing very well on defense. They're 30th in EPA per play allowed. They can't generate pressure. And on offense, they had a great showing against Pittsburgh, and we kind of thought, hey, maybe this offense is for real. Maybe this team can be for real. But then they go up and put 10 on a Buffalo D that struggled. Now, obviously, Justin Fields was knocked out of that game, but we just saw what Miami was able to do to them. So I have a lot of concerns about this, especially when we pair that with the fact that Pittsburgh hasn't looked good on defense so far this year. They've had two pretty bad outings. Maybe they've come back down to earth. Maybe that's what the showing was in week one. I'm not quite sure. But right now, I'm not really putting much trust into this Jets team. And I think Tampa is up there as being one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. They've won two close games. I know they didn't beat the brakes off of anybody. It's not quite as flashy as, Detroit dusting the Bears by 50 points, which still hurts me because I took the under in that game and they went over by themselves. But anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, I like what Tampa's doing. They've beaten good teams, and I'm high on the Falcons. And Houston is, by all means, a good ball club. They have good players throughout that defense. They have solid options on offense. Now, they have struggles in pass pro, but, that's another story entirely. I like what Tampa is doing, and I've got a lot of shares in Tampa this year. So I am on the side of the Buccaneers here at -6.5. V, is there anything else you're seeing in this game?
Yeah, this one's a little tough for me. I think on the spread, I'm probably just going to stay away. I agree with a lot of what you said regarding the Jets. My concern here, though, is with all the injuries for Tampa Bay, especially on offense. They're missing a ton of linemen right now.
Yeah.
A couple of those guys are going to be out for a few weeks. I think some guys are going to be out for the year. They've already announced Wirfs is not going to be back yet. I think he's getting close to being back, but he is still out. So just a ton of injuries on that offensive line. Egbuka was banged up this week in practice. He did come back today. but listed as questionable. So there's just a ton of injuries going on for this Tampa Bay offense. That's what makes me a little bit concerned about taking a spread as big as 6.5. I would rather take the under in this game. That's kind of where I'm leaning in this game, in this matchup, is just to take the under on the points, because I could continue seeing the Jets struggling on offense. Like we talked about, they were bad last week, even with Fields. Now we bring in Taylor. If they can't do anything on the ground against a good Tampa Bay defense, then the Jets really have no chance of scoring. I could also see the Bucks having some offensive struggles. They haven't been great offensively the first couple of weeks. They only scored 19 points last week. It was a slog there. In both games, they had to score late last second touchdowns, not only to win the game, but to even put up like any sort of significant points. So I think both offenses could struggle in this game, and I'd rather take the under in this one than do anything on the spread.
See, and that's kind of where I totally agree with you. And I think that's sort of where I'm excited about this Bucks team, is that they're not at full strength. They don't have
No,
their
they're
best
not.
offensive linemen. They don't have one of the best receiver. I say one of the best receivers. Chris Godwin, when he's good and he's cooking and he's rolling, he's one of the
Yeah.
top 10 to 15 receivers in the NFL. And I know that people love to argue that sort of hierarchy there, but his numbers show it. His grading profile shows it. He is incredible. And then you get Emeka Ibuka, who was phenomenal in week one. You know, he's been a little bit banged up. I am encouraged by the fact that they're not really at full strength. And I think part of it comes from that I'm really high on the Falcons. I thought that the fact that they went in to play the Falcons as a favorite, one, I really liked what they were able to do there against. Frankly, I think the Falcons defense is underrated. I know they have a lot of young pieces. I know they were bad last year, but I mean, you're seeing what they can do, and I think that from a pressure standpoint, they're much improved. From a coverage standpoint, they're much improved. And if they can just get that offensive rolling in Atlanta, I really like what they can do there. You look at Houston. I know Houston has troubles on the in pass pro, like I said, but like still a top notch defense, and that came up big there. You know, uh, they had injuries up front. You know, Barton's playing left tackle. They're trying to figure things out. They got Charlie Heck over on the right now. Like they're strapped there in Tampa Bay, and they still ended up coming out on top. So I've been really impressed with what they've pulled, and I just don't think that this Jets team is anywhere near the other two teams that they played. So it's going to be an
Right.
interesting thing moving forward as they do get more powerful, and it's going to be something worth watching with how the markets adjust once they start getting healthier and sort of how that fluctuates. I wonder if markets are going to be like almost immediate, like, hey, you know, Wirfs is back. They're going to get more, they're going to lay more points, or, you know, Godwin's back now. They're going to be laying more points almost instantly. Or if it's going to be a
Yeah.
little bit of lag while, you know, the public starts to catch up and markets start to catch up. So that's going to be something worth watching for. Not as worried about the Jets here, but I do like your play, or your, you know, your stance there with playing the under. I think that that's probably a pretty safe play as well.
Yeah.
The next game on the schedule here is gonna be one that you're probably not gonna see a whole lot on Red Zone this Sunday. We have the Raiders heading into Washington to take on the Commanders. And I know that has it been official? Jaden Daniels is out.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
He
So
has been officially ruled out.
Jaden Daniels has officially been ruled out. The line has sort of teetered around and moved around. I'm a little bit shocked that they're still, you know, 2.5 point favorites at home. I wouldn't necessarily see that. And the game total on this one about 44, and it's coming down. It looks like it's about 43 in some spots. V, tell us what you're targeting in this one and what you're seeing.
Yeah, definitely taking the under in this game, given the news that Jaden Daniels has been ruled out. Even if he was playing this game, I would probably strongly consider taking the under. But now that he's been ruled out for sure, I definitely love the under in this game. It's two offenses that have not looked very good so far. Even when Jaden Daniels is playing the first two games of the season, Washington's offense has been subpar to say the least. 39 total points in those two games combined, bottom third in the league in yards per play and passing yards per play. They're just not getting really anything going on in the passing game right now. Terry McLaurin has been relatively invisible over the first two games of the season after the long contract dispute with the team. maybe that could be a factor in why it's been a slow start. But I think the other reason, I think that's something we talked about last season, and I think could be coming to fruition. Is this the dreaded year two Cliff Kingsbury downfall that we've seen in the past with him before, especially when he was with Arizona as the head coach there, where he had a phenomenal first season, and that offense took the league by storm, and then things really started falling off a cliff, no pun intended. In year two, is that happening again in the second go round in the NFL as the OC here, where the offense is just not totally clicking right now? It's still too early at it. We can't make any definitive statements, so we want to see our other teams just catching up to what they were doing and defenses that have adjusted? Or is it just, Jaden Daniels year two, he's still figuring some things out and they'll be fine in the long term and he'll pick things up? Hard to say right now, but given what we've seen with their offense over the first two games, I'm not super stoked with what their offensive output will be, especially with Mariota starting at quarterback in this one. They're going up against a Las Vegas defense that has been surprisingly competent over the first 2 weeks. I think I especially was hammering them pretty hard going into week one, saying this is going to be a terrible defense. They're going to be in a ton of shootouts. They can't really do anything. They've allowed 33 total points over the first two games, 6 sacks, a couple of takeaways. They've been really good, and they're doing that despite their offense being relatively inept. They were put into really bad spots in both games, especially last week. First play of the game, Geno Smith throws a pick. Chargers have phenomenal field position. They get held to a field goal. They've been doing that all season so far. Their defense has been really stepping up. Max Crosby continues to be a monster. That forced fumble he had late in the game was just crazy. Most players would have quit at that point because they're down 2 scores. There's only a couple minutes left. Not Max Crosby. He continues to play 100% every single snap, no matter what the score is. So, yeah, I just don't see Washington's offense doing much. And then the Raiders' offense is, I don't even know what to say. I was pretty high on Geno coming into the year, and man, he has been tough to watch. 4 interceptions over the first 2 games. He's not really getting anything going. Ashton Genty has statistically not done anything. I think some of his advanced numbers might be pretty good, but his total box score and just rushing numbers have been nothing to write home about. So yeah, I'm just not super excited about either offense right now. So I'm going to take the under.
And you raised 2 good points, and it's going to be an interesting matchup here and an interesting case study on what either of these teams can do. First off, Cliff Kingsbury. Is there any more of just like a running off pure aura coach, as the kids say, just like the pure aura? That's how it was in year one. And he's taking, fashion pics in his huge Arizona mansion, and then teams figure him out and they're kaput. And then same thing happens. He's got Jaden Daniels, the hottest rookie in the NFL last season, and now they just can't figure too much out here. And it's just one of those things that something's got to give. It's probably a combination of both. Daniels in this offense sort of figuring things out, even though they have more pieces than they did last year, and people just sort of catching back on to Cliff Kingsbury's sort of trend breakers or his adjustments that he's made, while he was away from the NFL. So it's going to be one of those really interesting things to watch moving forward. And then, we talk about the Raiders. The Raiders, they played well enough against a, struggling and patched up, Patriots secondary, and then they got sort of washed out to a stout Chargers defense that's looked pretty good through 2 weeks here. Now is that going? It's interesting to see which way that's going to play. Commander's secondary has not been good this season. They don't look great in advanced metrics. They don't look good at the eye test either. But as far as advanced metrics goes, they've actually played pretty well against the run. And that's not a good thing for this Raiders team, who does want to continue to try to run the ball. The big issue is they're not getting any push up front. This isn't even really an Ashton Genty problem. Now, his metrics don't look great, but he doesn't get a lot of room to operate. He's the only running back in the NFL that's getting negative yards before contact, at least with snap threshold and things like that.
Right.
Their offensive line is just not generating push. So to be 2 games into the season and you still have negative yardage before contact, that's just not a good look. They're gonna have to figure something out, and it's sort of gonna play to the detriment of, well, Geno can take advantage of this secondary, but how long are they going to dedicate to trying to press the run against a Commanders team that is actually decently good up front? So that's going to be something worth watching. And when we look at just the trends in the betting markets with both of these teams, all 4 games from both of these teams, so 2 apiece, have all gone under this season. So I think that you're right there on track, under 43 and a half. I couldn't agree more. And it's going to be something worth watching. Mariota, he is going to be in for Jaden Daniels for this Commanders team. He's fine. He's played
Yeah.
okay in his time as, having to play as the backup there. But again, is it Daniels trying to figure things out? Is it people figured out Cliff Kingsbury again? That's
They have
really
played 2 good defenses. You wanna give a little bit of credit there. They did go up against
sure.
Green Bay last week, which could be a top defense in the league, and then we know
Oh
the
yeah.
Giants have a bunch of dogs on the defensive line,
Right.
so there is some of that to go along with it, but, questions are still there, right?
Right, exactly. Exactly. These are the games where you answer those questions. We talk about it all the time. We're learning things early in the season. This is the team you should potentially come out and beat. I mean, if you're more healthy, the Commanders should be the better team on paper. I mean, the Commanders were a playoff team last year. The Raiders have been in the bottom of the AFC West for a long time now. This one shouldn't be that close. If they had Daniels, they'd be a much higher favorite, but they don't. This still has to be a game you potentially win if you're a playoff team. So it's going to be one of those litmus tests for them for sure.
Yeah.
Steve says, I took the Raiders on the money line because I'm a psychopath. I love it. I love the craziness. You get them at +1. I don't know whose book this is. Also, I discovered earlier today that there's like a million new books out there on betting pros. I hope
That
you get,
looks like one of those,
yeah.
trade places now, not an actual book. Who knows?
Is
I'll
that is
share one
that
of
what
those
that
guys.
is? Okay. I was gonna
Looks
say,
like one of their logos.
you guys stick to the main books. Don't get flashy. Stick to the top 5 books. Fanatics is actually an okay one now too. They price things pretty well. So don't don't put your money in any of these strange books. Um, so next game we have on the schedule here is I just have to get this off my chest right off the beginning. Where do people get off calling this Colts team this year's Saints? The disrespect is unfathomable. Unfathomable. Everybody's talking about, oh well, the Saints had 2 great games to start last season, and now the Colts, they're gonna do that same thing, following the trend. It's like, what games are we watching? What games are we watching? They have played extremely well, and I definitely anticipate them to play well again here. We have the Colts on the road heading into Tennessee to take on the 0-2 Titans. They are 4 to 4.5 point favorites on the road here. Game total on this one about 43.5 points, and I'm riding with the Colts. I'm riding with the Colts. They're the better team. I'll take them at 4. I'll take them at 4.5. They're winning by 7, so I don't really care. Um, I mean, what is there to say about this team? They had all of these weapons. They had Shane Steichen. They just could not figure out the quarterback to bring that whole thing together. And now they have it. I know we can continue to say Daniel Jones, he had some good days in New York and then they fell off. But when you look at how they're using him, how they're playing within this offense, and Shane Steichen's scheme coming together, give me all the Colts shares you can. I'm all in on this. Daniel Jones has played as well as any quarterback in the NFL. He's 7th in PFF grade at 79.9. Jonathan Taylor, welcome back, Jonathan Taylor, cooking again. One of 2 backs with 200 yards on the season so far, 200 rushing yards on the season so far. The guy had 215 all purpose against Denver, against my
That's
Denver
pretty good.
Broncos. One of the good defenses, one of the best defenses in the NFL, or I mean, so we thought for a while. And granted, they only won off of sort of that. I don't. People call it a controversial call. It's leveraging. I'm a Broncos fan. It's leveraging. They leveraged like that's. I get that, there's clips going around of the Colts doing it, a quarter earlier, but it's not the same. It wasn't the same situation. They should not have gone all out for a 60-yard field goal. Now, Steichen's only real notch or black mark on his coaching resume here this season so far was playing for a 60-yard field
That was
goal
crazy.
to win that game.
That was
That's a bad coaching move,
bizarre.
and they got bailed out for it. But at the same time, I've heard some weird things being like, "Oh, well, that's because you know they the people were betting on the Broncos." Well, for one, the money was not really that lopsided, and for two, the Colts covered the game before that field goal anyway. So
Right.
I'm not sure where we're getting that from, Twitter conspiracies and things like that, but I'm not buying it. Colts are 2-0, 2-0 against the spread, and a lot of it is why, like I keep saying it, Shane Steichen, he's calling this offense to perfection. They're fourth in PFF offensive grade as a team, second in EPA per play. I mean, Tyler Warren looks like the secret weapon that just unlocked this offense. They use him in all facets. They run him through the RPO. He is a key to why this offense is running so well. Second highest graded tight end in the NFL. And then, I mean, when you look at the other side of the ball, they've played solid defense. Now, they don't have the strongest personnel back there, but Lou Anarumo, he's got this team working well. And now this week, they're going to get Travarius Ward back from concussion. Tyler Warren, who's dealt with a toe this week, he's
Yeah.
looking like he's going to be playing. He got practice in. And Latu,
Leatu.
yeah, I always mess up his name. He looks like he's going to be back with the hamstring. He had the incredible, drop back for that pick in week one. So, they're all going to be coming back. Latu and Ward missed last week, and they still ended up coming out on top, and they still made a Broncos offense not look great. And when we look at the other side, Tennessee, they're just going to struggle. They're going to struggle against JT. They're 29th in EPA per rush. Cam Ward is going to struggle against Lou Anarumo's defense. He throws a lot of crazy looks. They get goofy on defense, and it's just going to put the young quarterback in knots. And he cannot get
It was
away.
so fun to watch, though.
It
Come on.
was okay. Let's put it this way. I pray that Cam Ward ends up becoming phenomenal, a phenomenal quarterback so that, you know, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, we can watch those highlight packages. They're like, and this was Cam Ward's first career touchdown throw. Like, that's going
Right.
to be an incredible timeline to be in. But right now, that's not going to work against Lou Anarumo's defense. If he tries to get crafty and throw anything even remotely close to that pass this week, Cam Bynum's taking that thing. Cam Bynum is taking that thing. One of the highest graded safeties in the NFL so far. He has 2 picks in 2 games. And, hats off to the best celebrations in the NFL. Gotta love a guy that's having fun. So I'm all over the Colts in this one. I love it. And Steve again says, I agree. The Colts are the 2022 Giants. Win with defense and rushing and a quarterback, Daniel Jones, that isn't great, but isn't bad enough to cost you games. Exactly. Exactly. Put him in position to win. And one of the things that isn't talked about enough, quarterback is incredibly important to any team's success, right? But I don't think it quite gets the credit as teams can win in this NFL. It's a highly dependent position. It's one of the most dependent positions on the people around you in the NFL. It can make or break your team, but it's also closer to being like your sixth man of the year style, like your glue guy. Like if you can get that guy, you can win football games. And this Colts team is showing that. Give me the Colts, like I said, by 7. I'm not even going to sweat this thing at 4.5 or 4. It's going to be one of the easiest covers of the year, even on the road, even as road favorites. Anything you're seeing with this one that I missed here?
Ooh, boy, I don't know. I think this is going to be our first disagreement of the season
Okay,
so
I
far.
like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Titans are going to necessarily win this game, but I do expect them to cover in this one. I don't think the Colts are last year's Saints, but I don't know if they're going to be as good as they have been over the first 2 games of the season. I believe the stat is they have not punted yet this season over 2 games. That's not a trend that's going to continue. I just don't. I just can't see this offense continuing to be as efficient as they are when you have Daniel Jones under center. We've seen enough of him throughout his career to know that at some point things are not going to be as phenomenal as they have been over the first two games of the season. And I like what this Titans offense has the potential to be. I think Cam Ward has been good. He's played two very, very good defenses to start his career with going on the road against the Broncos, having to play at home against the Rams last week with a very solid defense. Now he gets a Colts defense that is not nearly as good as those other teams. Colts rank near the bottom of the league in terms of pressures and sacks. They don't do a good job of getting the quarterback. So now if you're going to give Ward a little bit more time than he's had over the last couple of weeks, he can do some things, try to get Calvin Ridley more involved, see if they can open up some room against Tony Pollard. And despite those tough matchups, the Titans have been in both games to start the season. It was a one possession game against the Broncos for most of that time. They had plenty of opportunities to win that. That defense in Denver is just too good. And then last week, the Titans were leading at halftime. It was 13-10. And then, Stafford, does what Stafford does, and he has Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. That's just going to be too much to overcome for a young Titans team. But they are very frisky. They are competitive. They stay in these games. And I like what the Titans do on defense, too. They have a very fun front line with Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat, who can get after you a little bit. They make things happen. I don't know. I think this is going to be very competitive. This is a division game. Titans are home, getting too many points. Whenever you see these, when you look at the trends on these type of situations, the home dog usually covers it. It covers in this spot. So I'm just going to take the Titans in this one. It's going to be ugly. It's not going to be fun throughout most of it. And there is a strong potential for Jonathan Taylor to have another monster game, which could totally throw this, out the window for me. But I just cannot put that much stock in the Colts right now. This is a very deceptive 2-0. They should be 1-1. Last week's win, playing for a 60-yarder is ridiculous. You can't do that. So Shane Steichen's going to have some missteps like that. That's also going to cost them. I didn't like what he did at the end. I don't want one series to define him when he's had so many other good series this season. But that's a huge mistake that you can't get off the hook with. So yeah, give me the Titans to cover in this one.
And you raise a lot of good points. And the thing for me is that while I think the Titans have pieces, I don't like where the coaching's at. I think that
I agree. Coaching's not great.
I don't think that the coaching is great right there right now. Situational awareness, obviously we can talk about the situation where he doesn't realize that an elbow down is in bounds and doesn't throw the flag because he doesn't think that an elbow equals 2 feet. And it's just situations like that don't give me a lot of confidence in Tennessee. But I do agree with you that I think that Tennessee can be better. I personally, I'm big on Cam Ward. I like Cam Ward. I think he's going to end up being a good quarterback for them, and they can get better. They need a few more pieces. In
Sure.
Steichen, again, that playing for the kick at the end, you either have an unreal confidence in your kicker or that's just a miscalculation.
He was a no-name guy that only any of us had heard of before the season started.
Exactly.
I hadn't even heard of him even going into week 2. Like, who is this guy? And you're just going to trust him to bang a 60-yarder?
Make a 60-yarder.
It's not Brandon Aubrey. Like, let's get real here.
Exactly. And so, we're on the topic of, first drive results. This is interesting, or the not punting results. I was looking for not punting, not to punt, see if you could get a line on not to punt. I couldn't find one. But this is just their first drive results. And just to show something that's incredibly interesting, most teams don't get a plus money on punting for the first drive. Like, this is it's usually right around still 110 or, even-ish money, but to be plus 131 to punt is kind of crazy. I mean, we look at the Titans and they're at minus 126. It's an interesting one. Plus 237 for a first drive touchdown that's an interesting one. I think it shows you that, the market, what they're seeing or what they're pricing, at least this Colts run to start the season at. And I think part of the reason why I'm taking it is just the disrespect to call them this year's Saints.
Yeah, I mean that's a bit much. That's
It's
definitely a bit much. I mean,
that's crazy. That's just crazy talk. Anyway, so the second, or excuse me, the next game on our list here, and I love your read on this one, V. I love it. We have the Cincinnati Bengals heading into Minnesota to take on the Vikings. The Vikings in this game are about 3-point favorites. It's fluctuated a little bit, but obviously the big news here, excuse me, game total on this one is about 41 and a half points, 42 and a half points, depending on where you're shopping. It looks like the you're on the side of Cincinnati here at
yeah.
+3, just to get some tidbits out of the way. We've got Jake Browning taking on Carson Wentz. We've got a big time backup quarterback duel, and it's going to be an interesting one. What are you seeing in this game?
Yep, like you said, I am liking the Bengals at +3 in this one and probably to win this game outright. Browning versus Wentz, heavyweight matchup. We cannot wait for it this weekend. Jake Browning might have had the craziest game for a backup who came into a game without starting last week that I've ever seen. Just unbelievable stat line: 241 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions in like I don't know, 2.5 quarters of
Two and
play.
a
Like
half
that
quarters,
is
yep.
that's absurd. Like he was slinging the ball all over the field. I guess kudos to Zach Taylor for giving him that many opportunities, but that was insane. I was wondering if Joe Burrow had just come back in at a certain point, but no, it was just Jake Browning the entire time. Last time he started a game was 2023 when he went 4-3 as a starter, including 2 overtime wins. Obviously, he's not on the same level as Joe Burrow, but you know what he does have in common with Joe Burrow? He gets to throw to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the best wide receiver combo in the NFL. And he did that very well last week. He had a nice play to Higgins where Higgins was, single covered. He made a phenomenal catch and then broke 2 tackles to score. Jamar Chase had 14 catches or something last week. He was just all over the field, unguardable. I think we could see a similar success for them in this game. And then I just think I have concerns with Minnesota. Wentz has not started a non-Week 18 game since the 2022 season. They have a lot of other injuries besides J.J. McCarthy right now, especially on the offensive line. Christian Darrisaw is still questionable. He has not played this season. His backup, Justin School, has already been ruled out for this one, along with free agent center Ryan Kelly has been ruled out. And this team did not look good on the offensive line last week on Sunday night. JJ was getting sacked left, right, and center against the Falcons. Potentially could see something similar now that you have to go up against Trey Hendrickson and this Cincinnati defense. They're also dealing with some injuries on defense. Andrew Van Ginkel and Harrison Smith are listed as questionable in this one. So I just think I'm just trusting Jake Browning over Carson Wentz right now. We've seen a lot more recently out of Jake Browning than we have with Carson Wentz. We also know that Cincinnati just has phenomenal weapons. Justin Jefferson has not really been able to get going so far this season. How much of that is J.J. McCarthy has not looked very good, or how much of that is there's some issues elsewhere on that offense right now? To be honest, if McCarthy was starting this game, I would like the Bengals even more because we kind of know that he's just not been very good for the first 7 out of 8 quarters for his NFL career. Whereas with Carson Wentz, we're pretty sure he's just not going to be good because it's been a long time since we've seen him do anything at all. But there is some of that variability where, this is still Kevin O'Connell. He can do phenomenal things. And if he just has a somewhat competent quarterback under center, they can, do phenomenal things. But still, you just can't take the Vikings as 3-point favorites in this one with so much uncertainty and so many injuries. So even the Bengals in this one.
And it's an interesting exercise. Given how bad they've been with JJ McCarthy on the field,
Yes.
do I venture to think that the Bengals may have been favorites even with Jake
They
Browning
would not have been favorites, but it might have been like 2.5 rather than where it is
rather
right
than
now, which is like
3 and a half?
3. That's what I'm thinking because so it's very interesting where you're getting better prices with your backup than your starters. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, and I think there's so many interesting like notes and storylines with this one. So let's just start with Jake Browning. So Jake Browning has actually been incredible for Jamar Chase. Any fantasy managers of Jamar Chase out there right now, don't panic. Don't panic at all. Start him. Start him confidently. I don't know what Jason thinks about this. I don't know what Steve. I don't know what Neil. I don't know what any of the fantasy guys think about this. But you heard it here first from Mason. Start Jamar Chase this week.
Yes.
What we saw, and you brought up Jamar Chase just this past week when he came into the game, 2.5 quarters. He went 10 on 12 targets to Chase for a $128. Like, get out of here. Like, how does that happen? And that was for a 37.5% target rate on routes run. That's an insanely high number. Jake Browning right now is like, I have nothing to lose. I'm just gonna throw the ball to Jamar Chase.
It's a pretty good idea.
It's a pretty good idea. And that's a trend that's gone back to his time when he was starting in 2023. Over the starts or with Jake Browning or over Jake Browning's time under center for this Bengals team, Jamar Chase has a team high 53 targets. He's got 23 more than any other player on the team. So I'm all in. Go ahead and take the Jamar Chase alt lines. I know that my guy Ben Lindsay over at PFF, he's got a same game parlay around this game with Jamar Chase going plus 120. I love it. Going balls to wall there. And we go to the other side of the ball. So Judah Fortgang, another guy that I do the brilliant analyst, data scientist that I do the PFF show with, he actually has a great chart that projects quarterbacks creation rate and destroy rate, which is just how well you do within your offense. And are you the issue? Are you working with what's well? Are you hitting the open passes? Or are you, struggling to find open receivers? That chart was abysmal. If anybody wants to go see the chart, go hit up the PFF YouTube and check out the betting show from earlier today, and you'll be able to see that chart. JJ McCarthy is at the bottom of that chart by a country mile. No other quarterback is anywhere near him in destroy rate. He has been horrendous, and that's not just people want to rile against analytics and these math nerds coming in with uh, analytics to talk about football. Go look at it on the field. Go look at it on the field. Go look at it on the face of Justin Jefferson on the sideline. Go look at KOC's face on the sideline and tell me that they're not sitting there in that game last week going, this kid is supposed to be the guy that's going to be our starting quarterback. This is our franchise quarterback. They were having some doubts and regrets and missing Sam Darnold at that point.
Yep.
Now, with that being said, poetic justice would be so interesting if Carson Wentz suddenly follows the Sam Darnold redemption arc and comes out and has
It's a possibility.
The thing is that they had a really, Wentz was pretty good in 2023 when he came back, at least for a little bit. He had a couple like 300-yard games right off the rip there. And so it's going to be interesting to see, KOC, he's a bit of a quarterback whisperer. I don't, like I said, I like the way you're going with this one. It more also falls on the Vikings defense. Their high risk, high reward play is coming back to bite them a little bit. That's what you have when you have so much turnover in the secondary and you have so much turnover up front. It's just not the same unit that they fielded last year. So it takes time to learn when you play that high risk, high reward type of, fire zone coverage, like it's going to come back to bite you a little bit. So, I like where your mind's at with this one. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I'm on the side of the Bengals there too. So, but yeah, man, Wentz versus Jake Browning. What a matchup! What a matchup we have in store.
Everything we predicted going to the season, right?
Exactly. Oh. All right. The next game on the schedule here. This is actually a pick I plucked directly from. So for Anybody who doesn't know, I do the PFF betting show every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. You guys can go check that out on the PFF YouTube channel. I'm not going to spend too much time yammering on about this because I feel like I've yammered on about pretty much every game we've talked about. But if you want to hear me go more in depth, you can go check it out over there. But I will give you guys the cliff notes. I don't really think you guys need too many cliff notes on this one. Game total for the Dallas Cowboys heading into Chicago. Dallas about 1.5 point favorites here on the road. Game total on this one, surprise, I'm going towards the game total, is 50 points. I got it at 50.5, and I went over, and I'd go over again. And I'm shocked that this game was only 50. It could have been 53.5 points, and I probably still would have been tempted to take the over. We watched both of these games last week. Everybody watched these games. I got burnt on the under for Lions Bears. The Lions covered the over by themselves. 46.5 points, 47.5 points. They had 52. Didn't matter. These teams gave up a combined 92 points last week. And they each allowed over 500 yards of offense. Just to put that into perspective, I get that, the Giants have some pieces against this Cowboys defense, but this is also the Giants team that scored 6 against Washington. They scored 6 against Washington, who is a team with not a good secondary. So, something's got to give there. There's a little ebb and flow, but I think one thing is for sure. Dallas is struggling defensively. They can't stop the run again. Shocker. They didn't really dedicate any resources to it. They don't really have much of a pass rush. Shocker. They don't have Micah Parsons anymore. And they're really high variance play in the secondary. Shocker. You have Trevon Diggs and you have, Deron Bland. They're sort of high risk, high reward cornerback play, really selling out for picks and things like that. But I mean, they've struggled. They're pretty much bottom of the league in every single defensive metric, ranging from success rate, PFF grade, EPA per play allowed, yards per play, all these different metrics. They are in the basement. The very, very same can be said for this Bears defense. It's looked pretty bad. It's looked pretty atrocious, and a lot of it comes down to the fact that they've just been missing corners. It comes down to a lot of things, but they've been missing corners. They've been really bad in the secondary, and now they're going to be missing 3 of their top 4 corners. Jalen Johnson is pretty much lost for the year, per his words. So now he hasn't. I don't believe he's been put on the IR yet, but there's, from his own mouth, it's pretty much going to cost him the whole season. Kyler Gordon still hasn't even stepped foot on the field yet. Jalen Jones still hasn't even stepped foot on the field yet. And they have 2 of the NFL's bottom coverage graders in this secondary, in Nick McLeod in the slot and Kevin Bayard, which is crazy because Kevin Bayard, he had a great season last season. He was a really solid player, and he has just sort of hit that wall and sort of fallen off a cliff, and they've had pretty atrocious advanced metrics. It hasn't looked great. And when you say now that he's coming up against Dak Prescott, who absolutely erupted last week. He's 2nd overall in PFF passing grade. He has the most big-time throws in the NFL at 9. And for anybody who doesn't know, big-time throws are, throws down the field, perfect throws into tight windows, things like that. This is a guy who is dealing. The Cowboys are happy to have him back. And, and the other thing is they're running the ball. They're running the ball incredibly well. Where was this Javonte Williams when he was in Denver? Like,
Right.
What are we doing? Come on, man. But anyway, so, without getting too deep in the weeds, over 50.5, I would have taken it over at 53.5. So anything you're seeing in this one, V?
Now this is going to be on my card as well. Definitely liking the over. Surprising that the number is kind of going the other way though a little bit. It was like 50.5 to start, or even 51. I'm seeing it down to 50 and 49.5 in some spots. So a little interesting, but you just have to take be over. Just both defenses are not playing well. Chicago is super banged up. They're also going to miss TJ Edwards in this game after he re-aggravated an injury last week. Also, same as Jalen Johnson did. They're not playing well on any phase of that defense, secondary, linebacker, defensive line. Nobody's playing well. They don't pressure the quarterback. They don't do anything super well. And then Dallas, I don't know how many times they could get burned on deep balls last week. You feel like if you let one up, you're going to make some adjustments and not let it happen again. They let it happen 3 or 4 more times. Every time they cut to that game, it was another deep bomb. And I was thinking, is this a replay? Is this just a play that we already saw for the first quarter? And it's like, nope, it's a brand new deep bomb that the Dallas secondary is giving up because for some reason they don't know how to adjust and figure it out. And they're letting old ass Russell Wilson, continue to beat them up and down the field. So, yeah, there's no trust in either defense, and both offenses are competent, at least I would say. Definitely on Dallas, and then with Chicago, they can move the ball a little bit. They'll get some garbage time points here and there as well. So should be a relatively simple over in this one.
Yeah, and something I didn't necessarily talk about a whole lot there is the Chicago offense. Now, Caleb Williams has not been good. The inaccuracy is glaring, to say the least.
Yeah.
What we have seen, though, is Ben Johnson is scheming his guys open. The plays are there. He's just got to hit them. And I think there's going to be plenty of room to do that against this Dallas defense. And, it's bad when Russell Wilson has Wan'Dale Robinson looking like a field stretcher. Like, he's a burner down the field now. Like, that's the king of, like, 4 dot and going under on the yardage line, but going over on receptions, as my co-host Judah Fort Gang put it on the show this morning. So that's going to be an interesting one. And like you said, it is interesting that it's coming down. But I mean, as any good investment banker will tell you, that just means I'm buying more stock of it. So the next game on the list here, and our last one for the slate, we have the Cardinals heading into San Francisco to take on the 49ers. 49ers here are 2.5-point favorites at home. Injuries for both of these teams. It is looking pretty bad. It's not a really great look for either of them. Brock Purdy started the week with a lot of excitement that, he might get out there and start after getting an injury designation that was going to be like 2 to 6 weeks. And now after 1 week out, he's, potentially coming back. Well, they poured water on that today. He is highly unlikely to start per Kyle Shanahan. Mac Jones again. When we look at the Cardinals have a bunch of injuries in the secondary. Max Melton went out. He ended up coming back to practice. I haven't quite looked at it as of Friday, but I know Will Johnson.
Right now.
Is he questionable? Will Johnson, he missed some time in practice. And then we had he's doubtful. Okay. And then we had Garrett Williams, which is a huge loss to this defense. He got placed on IR. So tough look for this secondary, which was looking very strong for this Cardinals team. And that could be an issue even with Mac Jones, because the 49ers have looked pretty decent at quarterback, depending on who's there. A lot of it is from how well they've been blocking up front. But V, what are you seeing in this one, and which side are you targeting?
Yeah, I like the 49ers against the spread in this one. I got them in -1.5. It's moved up to 2.5, possibly because maybe people thought Mac Jones or Brock Purdy was going to be able to play in this one. But even at 2.5, I still really like the 49ers to win this game by a field goal or more. Even with Mac Jones highly likely to play in this game, I'm totally comfortable with it. He looked fairly solid last week. 279 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 turnover, passer rating of 113. He just looked comfortable in Kyle Shanahan's system. I think most quarterbacks do, even though they had some injuries with their weapons, with Kittle being out, Juwan Jennings being banged up going into the game. He was still able to make things work and, spraying the ball around. And obviously McCaffrey is that engine. He had almost 20 touches in that game and just continues to be a solid player there. I think the thing that's been most surprising for me for San Francisco has been how well their defense has been playing so far. They've definitely been way better than I was expecting. They're top 10 in points allowed and yards per play allowed in the league so far through 2 weeks. Their defensive line is looking solid. Nick Bosa has made big plays for the first couple games. Bryce Huff has been a good free agent addition there. And I think Robert Sala just hasn't been playing very well. That was a big offseason addition for them to bring him back as defensive coordinator because it really looks like they're playing well, even with a lot of young pieces on that side of the ball. Main reason I'm taking this though is because I just have a lot of concerns with this Arizona team. It is a weird start, especially given that they're 2-0. We should be feeling super positive about this team. They've beaten the teams they're supposed to, started off well, and they're 2-0. But I just do not feel very good about how they've looked in those games. They were controlling both games, week one against the Saints, week two against Carolina, and it felt like they probably should have blown both teams out. But when you look at it, they were very close to losing both of those games. The Saints had a play at the end of the game to tie it where the ball came out of Juwan Johnson's hand at the very last second. And then they gave up an onside kick to Carolina, Carolina was driving to take the lead after being down 27-9 in the fourth quarter. Like, this is just not a good feeling right now for this team, and I just don't know what to think of them, especially on offense. They're not really able to perform right now for a full 60 minutes. It feels like they have good stretches here and there, but then they also just taper off every now and then. They also are not getting a lot of plays in. They are bottom 5 in total plays run so far, and they are bottom 7 in pass attempts so far through 2 games. It seems like they really want to have this offense go through their running game. And I guess that sort of makes sense because you just never know what you're going to get out of Kyler Murray. He can make some incredible plays like we saw with his long run last week. But then later on in that same drive, he makes just a completely boneheaded turnover that you cannot throw that ball in that situation given how much time is left in the game, given what the score is. I don't know. There's just too much up and down with them. They're not really using Marvin Harrison Jr. still. His usage has been relatively limited through 2 games. I don't know what we're getting from this Arizona offense. I just cannot trust them. And then you already mentioned all the injuries that they're suffering in their secondary. All 3 of their starting corners are banged up and could potentially miss this game. So, yeah, tough look for Arizona right now. I think the 49ers should be able to win this one pretty comfortably.
And you bring up a really good point. The Cardinals were a really good offense last year, and part of the reason why is because they ran the hell out of the football and they were good at it. This year it's just not happening. They're not running the ball very efficiently at all. And part of the reason for that is, we talked about Dallas's run game being good. Well, it's because they hired Cardinals offensive line coach Clayton Adams to be their offensive coordinator. And they have played very well. And, I'm not super duper familiar with Clayton Adams, but now I've been told that this guy has a cult following between the running game community and it's showing up. He was the secret sauce, and this Cardinals offense is just not running the ball very well because of it. So that's going to be, I completely agree with you. And again, the strength for this team was largely on the Cardinals' ability on defense finally reaching what Jonathan Gannon could have envisioned and what he had hoped for. And, they can still pressure a little bit, but this is going to be a struggle against, like I said, a San Francisco 49ers offensive line, highlighted by Trent Williams, who is still playing at an incredibly high level. They're blocking great. They're protecting well. They're giving quarterbacks time. And of course, you have Kyle Shanahan, who's making life easy on the quarterback. So, I'm with you there. I think that they can cover this one pretty handedly too. Which is a shame because I have so many Cardinal stocks this year that for them to fall apart, I wanted them to get better from where they were, but now they're sort of going to come back down to earth. So it's going to be one worth watching though. And that about does it for us here for week 3. It was that's a good slate. It's actually going to be a pretty good slate. I'm excited to watch it. We are going to be back same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. And again, if you're not over in our Discord, go do it. ImportantNonsense.com. That's how you can become a member. That's where you can get into our Discord, ask us all your betting questions. You got any questions on games that we didn't talk about here, definitely hit us up there. You can also hit up all the fantasy guys in there. Ask them your start sits. Ask them your trade advice. They love talking about trade advice, especially if you don't take it. They love that. So go in there, hit them up, check them out. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you're over here on YouTube, or hit the follow button on Twitch. We're going to be here all season long, yapping it up about all of the betting markets, and I can't wait to do it. V, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
No, it was another blast doing this again this week. Really looking forward to the slate in week 3. Should be a ton of great games. And yeah, if anybody has any questions or wants to chat about some picks, come on into the Discord.
Yep, hit us up. We love to do it. And that does it for us. Until next time, everybody, good night. Good luck.